And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Kim Carey, also known as the Orb Whisperer from the YouTube channel Intuitiview. She is an intuitive empath who communicates and works with orbs, which we're going to talk about today. Kim, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Kim, how did you start seeing orbs in the first place?
Well, a couple of ways, actually. The reason I kind of got interested in this and seeing them in a different way, because we've seen them in ghost videos. I think everybody's kind of seen orbs fly here and there in ghost videos. But I saw one particular video that stunned me. And it was a woman who had lost her son. And she called in her son as this orb. And she asked him to change into a pink color, which he did as an orb. She asked him to go to his guitar in the room. He did. And I was just struck with, I thought, what if this is real? This is a groundbreaking thing. Why aren't we looking at this more closely? And so we got a security camera, which has the infrared or the night vision. And I started to see them in our living room. I started to see them mostly when I would close out my readings for the day, and I would say thank you to everyone who was here during my readings that I would do in this very room. And I would see all of the orbs leaving. So there'd just be orbs flying, and they just kind of leave as I said thank you. And so then I started to kind of interact with them. And we can talk about that. But that's kind of how I got started. It was pure just interest, intrigue. It didn't scare me at all. I was just completely intrigued with this. And you say orb whisperer, but there's a lot of orb whisperers. I'm not the only one. I learned from other ones. So this is a thing that if you're interested in it, you can do.
So when you say that you started seeing them leave when you finished readings, was that seeing them through the security camera?
Yes. It's very, I find it difficult to see with my eyes. I have seen them, and usually what they will look like is sparks. That's usually the way they look. And I only saw them once because there was a ton of them. I could see on my ceiling, and I actually thought I was just getting tired because it was the middle of the night. So I thought, well, I'm tired. I need to go to bed. But I was looking at the ceiling, and I could see sparks in the ceiling. So that's, at least to me, what they look like with my naked eye. But I would see them through the security camera, and I would look on my phone. A lot of the videos that I have on my channel are ones where I'm kind of looking at my phone and watching them through the security camera. And that's how I would see them. Yeah, I would talk and just say, thank you so much. And I would just see them shoot out of the room.
There are always naysayers. And the most common thing that people who don't believe in it will say, well, you're just seeing dust. So how do you tell the difference between dust and real orbs?
I do all this stuff, but I'm still very aware of the naysayers. And the thing about this is that you can't command dust to come towards you, to go to the left, to go to the right. At least I can't. Maybe somebody can with dust, but dust usually has a look to it. It usually kind of just falls. That's usually what dust does. It will float maybe a minute, and then it will just kind of fall. And I've done this long enough and have tons and tons of footage that I can tell the difference. And I will acknowledge, oh, that's just dust. I'll say it in my videos, oh, that's just dust. And that's also why I don't film outside. There are a lot of orb whisperers who will film outside. I never do, because I don't want the bugs or dust or anything to interfere. And I'll usually, when I turn on the camera, I'll wait a few minutes to wait for the kind of dust to settle. Because sometimes when you sit down in a chair or something, the dust will kind of fly up and then it will fall. So that's what I would say to that. And dust doesn't follow commands. I mean, and that's what a lot of it's almost like science experiments, because I'll do it like over and over and over again to make sure it wasn't just a fluke.
One time I had a guest that was speaking, and I saw a really small orb kind of fly by his face and then kind of like stop there. And then it looked like it blinked 3 times, and then maybe it disappeared or something. Have you ever seen them blink?
Oh, yes. They blink all the time. In fact, my daughter and I do this together because it's just so fun. And we love the blinking ones. So sometimes we'll say, "Can you blink?" And they will. They'll come. And they're huge. They'll come across the room and just blink and blink. I've asked them to change colors. I've asked them to blink. I've asked to see them. I've asked what different kinds of energy looks like, and they'll show me. The most interesting one that I did was they were kind of coming, and I had a lot of orb, and sometimes you'll have lots and lots of orb activity. Sometimes it's quieter, and I don't know what that is, if that's just how it is, or they're all busy, or what's going on there. But sometimes it's very, very busy. So on a very, very busy night, I asked, just out of just pure fun, what does fairy energy look like? Is there a fairy energy? Just asking. And all of a sudden they got really, really tiny and started to buzz, kind of like fireflies. And they could just be playing with me, but that is what they did. And so, yeah. They can do all kinds of things when you ask, and when you're curious. Yeah.
So what is an orb?
Well, from my own experiences, what I can tell you what I think it is, and what I think generally it is. They're concentrated spheres of spirit energy, and they can be the actual spirit. A lot of time pets will it's just a way they kind of travel or make their way to this dimension in spirit form. And so they can be the actual person, or the actual pet, or the actual whoever you're calling in. They can actually be that. They can be guides, they can be angelic beings. But they can also, I want to tell you about this one. Well, I've seen it several times now, but I saw in one interaction I had with my dad. My dad is on the other side, and he helps me a lot with orbs. So I was working with him one night, and the way the light was cast, I could see the outline of him standing in the kitchen. And he was going like this with his hands, and an orb would shoot out. So I feel like it's 2 things. It's either the spirit themselves. It can be that. It can be the spirit themselves, the actual pet, or the angelic form, or whatever themselves. But it can also be just a piece of energy, or a segment of energy they're throwing out to us. So I think it can be either one, because I don't want people to misunderstand that I have seen on the spirit side, because I do readings and all kinds of stuff, but we do look like ourselves on the other side. We have a spirit form, but we can also change forms and also kind of play with energy in a different way. We can't do here, at least yet. But that's from my own experiences. So I can tell you it's either them, kind of in that form, or it's a segment that they're throwing out to us, almost like blowing a kiss. That's how I like to think of it. Or, just sending out something that's kind of connected to them, but it's that they're sending it out to us.
That's pretty interesting. I've never heard anybody say that before.
If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would never know that. But I saw it with my own eyes, and I could see his hands moving like that. And then boom, an orb would shoot out. So I've seen it several times since. It just depends on how the light is cast. I can make out through my abilities, but also just the way that it can look in the room. I can make out the form, and they can wave to me and stuff. I've seen that before. So, but that's part of it too, is that they can just send out this energy just to throw out kind of like I said, it's kind of like blowing a kiss out to us.
What security camera are you using that you hook up with your phone that you're doing this with?
Ring, just Ring. a
Oh,
Ring
just
camera.
Ring? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
And
it's
you
not anything special. That's the other thing that I think lends validity to it, is that I'm not using anything special or weird lighting or anything. I'm just using my phone, just an iPhone, and then using my Ring camera, and that's it. And then uh yeah, so that's those are the basic things that I'm using, and also that they're not around all the time. I think if you saw it all the time, all the time, all the time, it would be like, oh, that's dust, or that's something in the room, or something. They enter when I call them in, and they leave when I say goodbye. So that also lends validity to what it it is, that it's something else.
on the camera, are you using like an infrared setting or something?
I'm just using like the flash setting, so the flash is on the whole time. So like if you're filming in the dark and you turn your flash on, and that's it. It's not an infrared as far as I know. It's just having the flash on your camera on the whole time so that the light is on.
It's recording in color or like that kind of green?
No, it records in color, because that's why I have some videos that I put up on my channel that are in color as well. I'll do meditations, and I'll call them in, and you can see them entering and coming in. So yeah.
Have you thought about why does the camera catch it, but you can't see it with your naked eye?
Well, like I said, you can see it with your naked eye, but I think what the camera does is it makes it bigger so that we can see it in a bigger form. I don't know exactly why it's picking it up, but it does. And I don't know enough about technology and lights and all of that stuff to know why. But I just know that it does. And as you know, before we were messing around, you can see how great I am with technology with the conversation we had before we came on, because I don't have a lot of knowledge at all about technology and the way this stuff kind of works. And like I said, lighting and things like that. But I know enough to turn on my camera and turn on the Ring camera. I could do that. And that's all it takes.
As an orb whisperer, what are you whispering to the orbs?
It's a couple of things, right? I have intention is very important, and not being afraid is very important, because what I have found is that spirits really don't want to scare you unless you want to be scared. So we see a lot of the ghost shows and things like that, and that truly is, I believe, spirits having fun with us. They know we want to be a little bit scared. They want to give us something to put on camera so we can see it, and it's exciting and a little bit scary and spooky. They're very aware. They know that. So I'm really whispering. I'm really talking to them to get them to kind of play games, show me how this is working. I really want to understand this. And so a lot of times I'm asking the same things over and over again. I apologize a lot because I say, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you to do this just one more time so I can make sure. And they will. And so a lot of it is just doing experiments, trying to understand this, and also the limits of it, and also how I can communicate better and better and better with them. I've gotten to where I can have a yes and no conversation fairly easily. And usually it's the vertical, is yes, the horizontal is no. And I ask them all kinds of questions about the universe and space and time and all these kinds of things. And that is fairly easy to do. And yeah.
Why do you think they're making themselves available to us in general?
Well, there's a couple things. I think they're always trying to let us know. Our loved ones are always trying to let us know they're okay. I think that's a thing that's always gone on. But I think something that has changed, at least in my opinion, and in some of the readings that I've done, the information that's come across, is that there is something that is happening now that is that our fear of death, our fear of just being poof, gone, that idea is impeding our spiritual evolution somehow. And so I feel like right now they're trying to at least get us to know that we go on in some form, in some way. We don't have to know all the ins and outs about it, but we need to know that we go on, because when you're not afraid of death, or when you're not afraid in that way that you're just going to be gone one day, you do live life differently. When living life without the fear of death hanging over you in that kind of way, you do tend to live a little bit more, take more risks and have more fun. And it does make you live life a little bit differently. And I feel like there's something about our spiritual evolution that's being impeded. And that's why we're getting a lot of NDE stories now. And part of it's technology, right? Our technology is just kind of meeting the paranormal somehow. But I also think there's something to that as well, just from personal intuition and just from readings that I've done.
So are you able to like call in any being, like as if someone had a relative who died recently and they want to get in contact with them?
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I've done a lot of recently, because what I have found, and what I think this tool, one of the reasons that, or one of the ways you can use this tool is for people going through grief. I had I've had a lot of pets. I think, the pandemic, I think people have now a very different relationship with their pets. I mean, they were like family before, but I think during the pandemic, people really, really came to appreciate and depend on their pets in a different way. And so people that have lost them after the pandemic have really had a very, very difficult time. And I do pet orbs all the time. And it will be completely dark in the room. And I'll say, Fluffy, can you come forward and let your owner, Joe, know that you're okay? And they will come in, and they'll all be different. They'll come in as colors. They'll come bounding in, kind of like their personality when they were here. Cats tend to kind of sneak up a little bit and kind of poke at the camera. It is very fascinating. And the interesting thing, and I'll send it on just like I'll send it in just a text, and it will just be this tiny video, but people are, it gets them past a level of grief because they know they're okay and they know they'll see them again. And I've done this for people I did this for a couple that lost their son. It was the first time I called in a person. I wasn't quite sure. I knew that people could come in, but I wasn't quite sure how this would work. And he came right in. He stayed in front of the camera so I could get him they just lingered there and kind of played peekaboo, came back and forth with the camera. And the parents, the mother got in touch with me and said, this completely changed his father. He moved through this kind of depth of grief he could not get out of. And she said, when he saw that video, he said, he's okay. That's our son. He's okay. And there is something about this that is moving people out of some stage of grief that's allowing them to know their loved one's okay. And once you have that knowledge, and it's seeing with your own eyes too, Jeff, it's not just, that's what I think the difference is you're seeing it with your own eyes. It's undeniable. And so I think that's the difference. And that's why it's such a great tool, I think, to use for grief. And I use it all the time. Do
you think there's a limit of time where beings are accessible on the other side because they may go ahead and reincarnate?
I do. I think it could get a little bit complicated, because I do think that our kind of higher self is always accessible in some way. But I think that this kind of accessibility will only get more and more and more. I know that also we tend to travel in soul groups. And so a lot of times we will wait for the rest of our soul group to come, and then we again come all together again. But I think this is something that is always accessible from the individual soul or higher soul. that's just my opinion about it. Of course, I don't know for sure, but that's what I feel is happening here. That it's coming from it's and again, it's complicated because it's just not how we do stuff here. It's not how we think here. It's not how we operate here. But that's what I think. I think is that I think this kind of energy will always be accessible. Yeah.
What do you got to do to get the orbs to come? Like, do you have to get in a meditative state, or is there some sort of preparation that's necessary?
There is, and I do have a class that I do explain it all and kind of give you a rundown of everything that needs to happen. And I show you how to do it on your phone, and I show a bunch of ways that you can communicate with them and kind of do your own little experiments and your own ways to call them in. Most of it has to do with intention. You want to connect. You want to have this experience because, again, they don't want to scare you. They don't want to freak you out. They don't want to push you away from this. They want you to be doing this. They want to communicate. They're not hiding from us. It's the dimensions we're in that we can't really communicate. Once we can, they want to just communicate and communicate and communicate. So as long as you're not afraid, and because it can be very jarring to have it, you call them in and they come in. The first few times I did this, I was a little bit like, oh, do I want to do this? This is kind of weird. But when you have the intention of what you would like, I want to communicate, I want to understand, I want to know my pet's okay, those kinds of intentions, and you also do not have that fear, it's kind of all access. It really is awesome. It is super fun, and I've never had a negative experience. I've never had a bad experience. I've had few things they have really surprised me, but nothing scary or weird or whatever. They like to have fun, absolutely, for sure. They have a sense of humor and like to have fun with you, but nothing scary or evil or bad or anything like that.
Let's take a look at some of the pictures and video that you have.
Okay, this is a blue-ish purple orb. They do come in different colors, which I always love. That's always one of my favorite things. And it's interesting because different people have different ideas about what the colors mean. I tend to think it's very personal, and so this one in particular was one my dad was sending out. His favorite color is blue. He's done blue for me before. So that's kind of so it's personal to him. My favorite color is pink. So a lot of times just to make me go, oh my gosh, they'll send pink. My daughter's favorite color is red. They'll show up in red for her a lot. So I think depending on what color means to you and how you respond to it is kind of the reason that they might choose different colors. That's just my opinion. A lot of people think that, red means, they're passionate about something, or green means that it's about nature and healing. That may be true. What I have found is that a lot of it, to me, feels very personal to what I like, or what impresses me, what they want. They want to throw out something to really to impress me or show me, like, oh, maybe she'll like this. This one is interesting too. So this one, I'm in meditation and I'm calling them in. And I do this a lot of times. This is an example of me doing that thing where I say, thank you very much. And and everybody leaves. And I was just doing that and watching them on my Ring camera, but I've started to set up my phone to record as well, because of the color, because the colors are so interesting. And this one, you can see it's almost a rainbow color. There's like some pink in there. There's some yellow. There's some kind of bluish green on the edges. Yeah, so and that's just kind of in a meditative state. The other thing that's interesting that I wanted to note as well is that the ones that are caught on the camera are not always the same ones that are caught on the Ring camera. they can be different. What I find is that your phone picks up more. They can be a little less dense. The ones that are picked up on the Ring camera are very, very dense. They have to be very, very dense. And so those ones are just thicker. They're just a thicker, denser orb. The ones on your cameras can be very, very light. They don't have to have a lot of density to them. So I meant to mention that before, but that was just an interesting thing that I've noticed, is that not everything that shows up on the camera shows up on the Ring camera and vice versa. This is a good example of a dense orb. It's and also a difference between orb and dust. See how the center is very, very dark, and then you have that lighter edge, that kind of light on the outside. That's very, very typical of an orb, in my opinion. Now, sometimes, so this is very interesting too, sometimes they can have faces in them. When my pet, my little dog Lucy, passed away, she came in about 2 weeks later, and I kept calling her in. I call her in still. I call her in all the time. But she came in, and there was an orb sitting in the carpet, and when I enlarged it, it was her face in profile. It was a perfect profile. And because I was like, am I just seeing this? I passed it to my husband, who's he's not a non-believer, but he's very, very, very skeptical. So I passed it to him, and I said, what do you see? And he's like, oh my gosh, that's Lucy. That's Lucy. You know, he was absolutely stunned. So just to make sure, like I said, I try to be as, even though I do what I do, I try to be as fair-minded about it as possible. This one is a person. This is a person that I called in. This was somebody's son that came in and just lingered right in front of the camera for a really long time. And I was able to get this. And this is how they come in also sometimes, is kind of what I think this is, because it's kind of like a bunch together, 2 or 3 together, is it's spirit energy being supported by other spirit energy. So I kind of feel like they're being supported by angelic energy or their guides or something. That's what I think this is. I don't know for sure, but that's kind of my intuitive idea of what this may be, or my intuition. But this was a very interesting one, because he actually came up and it was too fast. And I said, I'm so sorry. Could you do that again? And I filmed the whole thing, and you can see him go back to where he started from and come forward even slower and do this. Kind of, he was supported. It looked different. It was like 3 together. And then it just kind of lingered in front of the camera. And again, his parents were just absolutely blown away. And I kept the whole interaction on camera so they could see him go back to where he came from and then come forward again in this really slow, methodical way, so that I could get every single little bit of this interaction. So those are some of the different kinds of orbs, and that just gives you an idea of what is there. Do you want to look at some videos?
Sure.
Okay, so what's happening here is I'm having a conversation with the orbs, as usual, per usual, and you'll see some fly around. But what is interesting in this video is that you can see me holding my phone, and what I'm doing there is I've got my camera on, so I'm filming in 2 different ways. And I've also got the security camera, which is what we're looking through. And what's interesting about this is that what I'm talking about is I had read about like the 5th dimension and ascension. And at this moment, and the reason I know this is because I am running my phone and I'm recording, is that I said, you know, is the ascension real? Is this 5th dimension thing real? For example, are there angels here? And then this is what happened right when I said that.
First of all, what we're looking through is the Ring camera, and it appears that the Ring camera films everything in black and white. Is that correct?
Yes.
When you're filming with both the camera and your phone, do you ever catch the orb with both cameras at the same time?
Yes. Yes,
Cool.
you do. You can. It's not always, and I again, I don't know everything about why that is, but you a lot of times you'll catch them with both cameras. But what I've noticed is that they have to be very, very dense to be caught on the Ring camera. So you'll be more likely to be able to capture them on your phone. They can be a lot lighter, not as dense.
Let's check it out.
Okay.
That was pretty cool.
So this is slowed down, and
that definitely doesn't look like dust.
it's not dust.
Do you think it's just one orb flying around your room?
No.
There was multiple orbs that we were seeing?
There was multiple orbs. In this particular clip, you can kind of, before it came, you could kind of see the other orbs kind of flying around, you know, one here, one there. In that particular, I think, and that is an example of the fun they can have with you, because I almost could feel laughter in a way, because I just felt like they were just having fun, and that question just prompted that kind of crazy interaction. But the thing about that one too is that I handed it over again to my husband, who's very, very, very skeptical, and he said, "I'm going to take this video apart frame by frame to make sure this is not a bug or not something else, because this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen." And he said, he handed it to me and said, "Put it up. I don't know. I can't explain what this is, but it is not a bug. It comes straight out of the ceiling. It comes straight out of the ceiling and then he's very, very skeptical. He's not like me at all in this arena." And he said, I can't explain it. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen. So yeah.
What I like about it is that if it was dust, in my opinion, dust would be flying around everywhere. There would not be just like single images or single things randomly flying.
Exactly. That's what I think too about it, is that it's not, if it were something like that, you'd see it all the time everywhere. You know, it wouldn't be just when I call them in, just when I tell them to, tell them thank you. It's not a consistent thing. It's very much it's very much part of what's happening in the moment.
Let's check out another one. This
video was one of the first ones I did after getting the Ring camera. And I was just trying to figure out what are the limitations here? What will they do and not do? So I noticed some in the security camera kind of just flying around the room, which is normal. Sometimes I'll just enter the room and they'll just kind of start flying around me. So it just happens sometimes. And so this was one of those times. And so I said out loud, "Do you want to play high five?" And I put my hand up and I just left it there. And intuitively, I could kind of feel them going to the corner of the room, on the kind of left corner of the room. And then all of a sudden, they just kind of started shooting over my hand one by one and playing high five. And yeah, so if you want to see that one. the thing about that too is that after I was filming that, and again, this is kind of the beginning, so I'm kind of figuring out what can they do, what will they do if I ask. And after this video, what I asked was, who is this that's here? If you're from my family, I felt like it was family members. And I think that's part of what's good about being an intuitive doing this is you kind of get a feel for who this may be. But I said, if you're from my family, go to this side. And if you're from my husband's family, go to this side. And they did. They divided up and started going by on either side. So, but this was kind of one of the first videos I did after getting the Ring camera. And it was kind of the start of this interactions, actual communication with the orbs and seeing what they would do, what they could do. But yeah.
All right, maybe we can look at one more.
So this was something I had filmed because I was dealing with grief a few months before my mother had passed away. And I was in a place where I just felt like I couldn't quite move past the grief I was feeling. And I know that from a few other experiences that orbs, they do have some kind of capacity for healing. So again, as kind of my own experiment and to share, I'm always sharing this with my audience that I asked to heal me, ask if they could heal me from my grief, help me. And I wanted to film it, of course, so you could see what was happening. And what I was feeling as this was happening was a kind of a pressure in my chest. And all of a sudden, I just burst into tears. And then I felt so much better afterwards, which we always do after we cry, and we always feel better. But I needed to cry. And so I felt like the orbs were working with me to move me through that so that I could cry and I could start to heal and move on with my healing, my grief, move on with my grief. And so that's what you're going to see is this that's what's happening in this video.
There appears to be a lot of orbs flying around.
Right. Exactly. And they come in when I've asked them to come in. You know, when I've said, can you please come in for this healing? This is what happens. And they're also, you can see some are passing through me, some are coming over me. Some are kind of dipping down, like that one was kind of dipping down over me. And like I said, for me, what I was feeling was this building kind of pressure in my chest. And then this just flow of tears. When I put my head down, that's when I start to cry because I could just feel that was what was happening. It was kind of forcing me to cry. And you can see that also the difference in size as well. Some of them are huge. Literally like almost encasing my whole body. And then Other ones are just tiny. You have the blinking ones like you've seen before. Um, and yeah, so that's that one.
Cool. Thank you for showing us.
Sure.
If someone has fear about seeing orbs, how do they get over that?
It depends. You know, you kind of have to do some personal work, some inner work, and figure out where these fears stem from. Sometimes it can be from movies, things that we've seen. Sometimes it can be from childhood, from religion. You know, if you grew up in a religion that has certain beliefs, and childhood fears and that kind of thing. Sometimes sometimes people have had experiences that are spiritual experiences that they thought were scary. And what I can tell you is, at least from my experience, I have not experienced anything negative. I have never experienced an evil spirit, a bad spirit, anything like that. I feel that so much of this has to do with our intention. And if our intention is to want to be scared, want to be freaked out, that's why you have a lot of weird things with Ouija boards and stuff, because they're wanting to conjure that up, that kind of, and you do have playful spirits that will accommodate that on the other side, that like to have fun with you and like to give you that little scare if you want it. But I think maybe educating yourself a little bit about the fact that so much of this it really does have to do with intention. If your intention is just to understand, to want a good experience, to want a fun experience, that's what you're going to get. They don't want to scare you. And so, but I think a lot of people need to kind of go in that inner work and see, where are these fears coming from? And a lot of time, just naming it, oh, it's from that movie I saw, or whatever, sometimes that can dispel it right away, and you can just kind of let it go. But I think just inner work and in educating yourself a little bit about what spirit energy actually is, and that it's just our loved ones and our family and friends and people that love us. It usually just want us to know they're okay, and that we go on.
While looking at your channel, I noticed that you have a lot of videos looking at the future and being intuitive about politics.
Right.
Why do you choose that subject?
That's actually how the channel started, was because I started to get messages around politics. And people at the time, this was back in 2017, is when I started the channel, had a lot of fear. And I started to get messages that were letting people know that we would be okay, that it was going to be rough. It was not going to be easy. But it was that we were ultimately going to be okay. And that I think that spirit doesn't necessarily weigh in on a party, but they do weigh in on love and fear. They do. You have actions and ideas and things in politics that are spirit supported, and things that are not. And a lot of things that are spirit supported will kind of go on. They kind of have a ring, like a bell rings. It kind of moves along. And things that are not spirit supported can be forced through, but usually they kind of land with a thump at some point. They don't have that carry. And so what I found is that they don't want us, above all, they don't want us to be afraid. They want us to know that spirit kind of has our back, and that ultimately everything is okay. We go on, and this really is a place to learn. And so they really try to give us information, or to weigh in a way that helps us to give us enough information. So it's like, okay, I get where this is going. I'm not so scared anymore. I get where this is headed.
When you say that you're getting these messages, where and or whom are they coming from?
So my belief is that they come from my guides. And I say guides, I mean, on the earth plane, we use language. This is how we talk about things. So you can use all kinds of language, and I feel it's kind of interchangeable. So some people might say angels, some people might say, whatever, archangels. They might have different ways of communicating this, but I say guides. It feels like a I'll just say a spirit or a force that knows more, is wiser than me, and is also extremely loving and supportive. And I listen, and I've learned how to listen. This is not this is why I teach this, is because you can learn how to do this. It's not magic. It's not magic. And when you break down there's a process to this. And so when you break down the process and how to learn to communicate with the other side, whether it's through orbs or whether it's through, just through clairaudience, clairvoyance, whatever comes most easy to you, there's a process to it, and you can learn how to do it. It's not magic. I think that is something that people need to get away from, that some people can just do this and it's magical. Some people it's just easier for, just like some people singing's, they're kind of a natural singer, but you can still learn to sing on some level. So that's what this is. There's a process to it. And in classes, we break down the process, and you can learn. If you have that desire and you want to, and it's something you really want to do. And just like anything else, you have to practice. And so that's my understanding, is that it's my guides, and that's just what I say, and it's what I'm comfortable with. Some people might say Jesus, God, whatever they're comfortable, whatever language they're comfortable with is fine.
So when you hear the messages, you're clairaudient, and you actually hear a voice, like a male or female voice, talking to you?
It's a mixture, right? For me, it's a mixture. I say here because people, that's just what you say. But I'm a natural empath, so that means from the time I was a little kid, I could understand, I could pick up on people's emotions and feelings. It's just always something. I was always too sensitive. I was always told I was too sensitive. So that's something that comes very naturally to me. So the way the process would work for me, an example would be if I get the word, I might hear in my mind's ear, which sounds more like the memory of a sound. So if you think of the sound of a dog barking and you remember that sound, that's what it feels like to get a clairaudient message. It's in your mind's ear. I've heard things as like a disembodied voice. I've heard that a couple of times, but it's very rare, at least for me. Maybe other people can hear it. I don't have that kind of hearing, but so I might hear a word like, stars. And what I'll do is I'll say, okay, I just heard stars, and I take it to my feelings. What do I feel when I replay that word that I got? And then usually a feeling will come with it. Oh, it feels really like exciting and explorative. So I'll say there's something coming about exploration with the stars, and that's how I'll communicate it to the channel. And so it's a lot of things happening at once.
When you're hearing it in your mind's ear, do you still hear it in your own voice? For example, when you read the newspaper, you're reading it, but you're also kind of hearing it in your own voice. Is it like that?
A little bit. It's sometimes it can definitely have that feel of like your own voice, but it's a little bit different. And a lot of times I feel like it's a male voice, and I feel like it's the same male voice. That's just my feeling about it. But sometimes it's not. Like I said, it's more like the memory of a sound. So it can have a different texture to it, or like something you can make out or feel. For me, a lot of stuff is feeling. So I'll feel like it's masculine. A lot of times when I'm talking to my guys, it will feel like the same voice again and again. It can feel like me sometimes, but not as much. It's more me when I repeat it to myself. I just heard stars, and then I'll repeat it in my voice. It will, when I'm going over it, when I kind of take it to my feelings and I repeat it, that's in my voice. But when it comes in, it feels like a male, very soft whispery kind of voice. That's the only way I can explain it. It's kind of unexplainable in a way, but that's what it feels like to me.
After watching this podcast, people may want to ask you questions. Are you up for that?
Of course, yeah.
What's the best way to ask you, on your YouTube channel or from a website?
There's a few ways. You can go to the YouTube channel and you can post in the comments. You can go to, I have a website, which is where the classes are. You can download them. And I also teach live Zoom classes with another reader named Debbie. And we're actually doing an all-day workshop in June, which people might be interested in, and it's mediumship. So you can start from the very, very beginning and get pretty advanced by the end of the day. So that's there, but you can find information, how to get in touch with me and my classes on my website. It's intuitiview, all one word, .com. intuitiview.com/classes if you're just interested in the classes. And then you can also email me at intuitiview@gmail.com. And I'm happy to send you information about whatever you're interested in.
Kim, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
The last positive message I think I'm going to leave people with is we go on. We do not need to be afraid of death. We really, really don't. And we're getting more and more and more evidence that is available to all, even people that have no abilities at all. You can see it with your own eyes. And I hope that talking about this dispels some fear, and just to know that we go on, our loved ones go on, our pets go on.
Kim, thank you for that message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.